Hey YouTube, it's Robert again. I thought I wasn't gonna make another video tonight, but what the hell, might as well make a second. That's two in one night. Second video ever on YouTube. I just want to quickly talk about something here. See, where do I start? Oh yes, that's where I start. I don't get why people think that the Confederate flag is racist. It's not. It's just a piece of cloth that represented the Confederate States of America. Several states that just wanted to secede from the Union. And you could argue that it was about slavery, and you know what? I mean, you're kind of right and wrong at the same time. It was a very complicated issue. I mean, slavery back then was the way of life. I'm not defending it at all. That was horrible. That needed to stop. But look at the Southern perspective here, see? They thought that the federal government was coming over and telling them what they can and cannot do. And that's kind of, we're kind of thinking that guns are the same way. We're feeling like the Confederates did, because the government's trying to tell us we can't own any guns, we can't own any assault rifles or anything like that. And truth is that, I mean, humans are crazy like this, but in 150 years after guns have been outlawed and said that it was this horrible, evil thing that needed to stop, and Americans could no longer own guns, there would be people then, like in 150 years, saying, "Yeah, I could see why they did that." I mean, it's like, yeah, that was a very bad thing, but you know what? That's because they were taught that way. Now, I'm not saying that owning guns and owning slaves are the same thing. They're totally not. A gun is an object supposed to be used for self-defense or hunting. Slaves are people forced to work for free labor. They don't have a choice in it. They really don't. And that's horrible. I mean, I can imagine how those poor guys felt. And the Civil War really wasn't about slavery, because if you look in history, Lincoln said that if they stayed in the Union, the slave states could determine whether or not they stayed for slave states. Like, because his main point was keeping the Union together. That was his point throughout the whole war, and eventually, hopefully, addressing slavery at a later date, when the Union was no longer in trouble. Because that's the thing he wanted to do, was plunge his own country into civil war. But the Confederates, I mean, they felt as we do now about our rights. They wanted to keep them. They felt they were special, and they felt that they were citizens of the state before they were citizens of the country. Because, I mean, that's how some of the officers and a lot of the soldiers came to be, because their state seceded from the Union, so they felt that they were honor-bound to follow their state's wishes. That's why General Lee was the general of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia instead of say, the Army of the Potomac or any other Union army, because his state left, and he felt he was honor-bound to do as his state asked him to do as his state was doing. Ignore that. So, and that's what the war was really about for the Confederates, is their rights, like some of their rights that were being violated. It wasn't just slavery either. I mean, and you know what, honestly, it was a part of the Southern economy. It was a big part of it, because, and it started that way. Before we even became the United States of America, it started with the fucking British that brought the slaves over here. The British and the Spanish, I mean, they're the ones that made slavery what it is. We were just born with it, and we had to eradicate it. And they were, that's the reason that slavery existed in 1861, is because that it was there long before any of them were ever born. That's what their economy was based off of, because that's what the British based it off of. That's it. That's slavery in a nutshell. That's really it. And if you took away slavery, like as abruptly as they thought that Lincoln would do, then the South would be on its knees. Their people could have been starving for all they know and dying because their economy would have been in shambles. They were fighting to prevent that from happening. They weren't just fighting to hold the slaves. They were fighting to keep the people of their states fed and under a roof. They were fighting to keep their family safe and healthy. And that's part of it. Yeah, that's part of it too. But as I said, felt they were honor bound to follow their states. In fact, actually, there were some Confederates that, some people of Confederate states that fought for the Union, or that just simply moved to the Union, just simply moved there, because they felt that the Union was the way to go, and the reverse happened as well. Union people of Union states went over to the Confederate states because they felt that their cause was just. And here's what the Confederate flag really means. Excuse me a sec. You guys can hear me. I asked my grandpa, who's a southern guy, I asked him to get me this because I like not only being controversial, I think it's funny as hell, but I also want to prove that you don't have to be racist to own the Confederate flag. Let me tell you what this flag means. The red is the blood of Christ. The blue is the free and open sky, and the white borders are the clean skin of Christ, the clean body of Christ. The stars represent the states. Alright? And the cross, actually, the X you see here, I gotta nail that to the floor. The X you see here is actually kind of a sideways cross, which they got that from the cross of Christ. They did. That's actually really what it is, just sideways. It's not an X, it's really a cross. You can find all this information in museums. You can find it in history books if you get the right kind of history book where they actually tell you the meaning of those kinds of flags. Or you could just get it online from some reliable sources, not Wikipedia though, because you could just put anything you want on Wikipedia, make some outrageous claim with absolutely no proof at all, and post it on Wikipedia. I don't really trust that. I mean, my dad kind of opened me up to that a long time ago, and then I actually just started looking into Wikipedia because I never really did go there much. And I found that a whole lot of their claims, some of it on history, some of it on religion, even some of it on music, they were not true. A lot of them were not true, and some of them were even screwed up beyond all comprehension as to how the hell they got to it. But, yeah. I mean, I said what I needed to say. The Confederate flag is not racist, and the Confederate flag did not shoot up a black church in wherever it was. I think it was South Carolina. I can't quite remember, but no, it wasn't the Confederate flag. It was some psychotic murderer, white supremacist. And I am not white supremacist. I have multicolored friends, really. I've black and brown, yellow. I mean, I got a lot of friends that are not white, so... I mean, I'm not white supremacist, and I do not support it at all. Not one bit. And, yeah, I mean, the flag is just a piece of cloth, honestly. That's all it is. It didn't shoot up that church. It didn't kill this guy over there. Just psycho assholes did that. And they kind of relate the Confederate flag with racism because some of those psycho assholes took photos with the Confederate flag either in the background or holding it or on their shirts or something, or it's like, come the fuck on, man. I mean, look at so many people that have done the same thing, that have taken pictures with the American flag in the background, and which I got two actual American flags in my room, like small ones, one hanging there, the other hanging off the windowsill there, and poster over there. I love my country and its flag, but so many people have taken pictures with that flag in the background and still went on to do horrible things, and yet they're not saying that that flag's racist or offensive. Well, actually, some of the psycho-liberals are that think that people are offended by the United States of America and what it stands for, which is freedom, justice, honor, integrity, and opportunity. Some of them do, but that's a small thing. But it's more widespread than you think. How people think that the Confederate flag is racist. I personally don't think so one damn bit. As a matter of fact, if you're gonna say that, if you're just gonna get rid of that point altogether, like that little claim that the Confederate flag is racist, and gonna say that the soldiers and the generals were racist themselves, then I got news for you. The Union wasn't all that much different as far as some of the private soldiers went, or even a couple of the generals. I mean, they saw blacks as an inferior race. That was very common. That was nationwide. That doesn't make it a bad nation. No, that's just the way they were taught, and they believed that because, yeah, see, they felt that blacks, they weren't really as smart as anybody else, and at the time they weren't, because they weren't allowed to read or write or do any of that stuff that was meant for education. And the excuse me, the Northerners and the Southerners both, I mean, they had people that that really didn't like the blacks very much, and they had people that thought that slavery should end on both sides, and they had people kind of in the middle. But shoot, I lost my train of thought. Oh, what time is it? 7 o'clock. Let's see, where was I? I'm sorry, guys. I'm so tired. It's been a long day at school, so my brain's kind of starting to shut down a little bit. But as I was saying, I mean, the Union, Confederates, they had people on both sides of the question on whether or not blacks were intelligent or dumb. The truth is, at the time, they weren't very intelligent, because they didn't grow up reading and writing like the whites did. That's because they were the workforce, which is a shame, really. It's saddening. And yeah, I mean, they felt that way because, actually, they felt that way partly because the Africans actually sold their own people to the Europeans for a little bit of profit. They were blacks selling blacks, and so that kind of added to it. And they also felt that way because they felt that they were easier than anybody else to really control. Which I'm not racist, but I gotta say they have a point, because they're easier than really a few other races to control, because they really gave up. They gave up easy, honestly. Back in them days, they gave up easy, and that was because they come from a underdeveloped country as far as the rest of the world was concerned. I mean, a lot of them never even seen a cannon, and never even seen a gun, and they were looking at ships filled with, like, hundreds of ships just filled with cannons and muskets and flintlock guns, like weapons that they've never seen the like at that time in the 15 and 1600s and even 1700s. Like, they just plucked them from tribes, and they felt that they were reckoning with a force that they could not beat. So they just they thought that it was a better idea to just live the new life ahead, which was slavery, rather than fight and almost certainly die against those kinds of weapons. And there's people in every race that would do that. But that was a misplaced kind of thinking back then. I mean, there are cowards in every single race, and there are brave people in every single race, and there are kind of people that would only yeah, that would only like kind of be in the middle, like always try to save his skin, but be willing to make the ultimate sacrifice if somebody he cared about was in danger and at risk. So yeah, basically, I'm probably getting a little off track here. So I'm gonna end the video here, make it sometime where I'm a little more, like a little more awake, a little more refreshed. Maybe get some a cup of coffee in here, and that'll kind of help wake me up. But I'm gonna end this here with this last note: Confederate flag's not racist. It's just those few people that have been given it a bad image and a bad name, and it's actually orchestrated by the Democrats because they were facing some shit, a scandal that they brought upon themselves, so they wanted to turn the attention to the Confederate flag. And that's actually the battle flag of the Army of Northern Virginia behind me. Usually it was square, but that one's rectangle, but it's still same like flag. Battle flag of the Army of Northern Virginia. Like the actual Confederate flag was had 3 bars with the blue square in the corner, kind of similar to the American flag with the stars in a circle. And the second national was just a white field, a plain white field with with the square version of that red field and blue cross in the corner, which kind of looked like a retreat flag, a flag of retreat and surrender. So they changed that up by putting a a red bar at the end of the flag, at the end of that flag. And then, yeah, that's really about it, I guess. There were a million different Confederate flags, like a million different ones, but 3 national ones. That was not one of them. And General Lee himself never owned a slave in his life. So I'm going to end it there, and I'll see you next time.